Y'all can be seated now.
Y'all.
Yeah, y'all. Hey, Southern boys coming out today. Y'all. My Southern roots may come out today. You don't like it? I got news for you. I figured out a long time that there's nothing wrong with the Southern voice. Y'all Yankees don't know how to talk. So, and you know, I agree with Betty. If the great-grandmom had been allowed to go, there wouldn't be any Martins here today.
Carla's here.
Carla's here.
Well, Carly.
Right.
But they can take her too. So. Well, you know, I got this message, text message yesterday morning. It was funny. Because it said, "Good morning, Joe." And that's all it said. A couple minutes later, I get this, "Oh, by the way." A couple minutes later, I get this, "Can you say?" And then it stopped. So I sent it back to question mark. I'm confused. Say what? He says, "Quicken," in capital letters. I said, "Yeah, I can say quicken." Okay, well, remember, a month ago today, I made the comment you were talking about. I had a month and a half warning. I said, "I'm not letting my guard down because knowing him, he did." Soon I really thought it was going to be you. But it might be a short message today because Pastor Bob and Pastor Deb's not here. Pastor Rob's not here. Pastor Jeff is not here. That don't leave a lot of people to pick on, so Aaron, I guess you and Bree. Okay, now wait a minute. You and Bree are the children's pastors, right? Mm-hmm. Notice that's plural. Pastor Bree. That has a good ring to it, don't it? She hasn't come running yet, so I got by with that. You know, every time I get up here, I feel like I'm really teaching to the choir. And while that may be true to agree in most incidents, I believe that anybody gets behind this pulpit, God gives them the word. There's something that we need to hear. We may already know it, but it reminds us or revives us of something we need to take out there to somebody else. And really, that's kind of what I'm going to do today. I was in a breakfast yesterday, and it was funny because, I mean, it wasn't a minute before I get this text message that there was something said that just planted this thought in my head. And that's kind of scary to get in my head. But I get that message, and I thought, well, you know, I had a message in case I did get quickened. But God just kind of led me this direction. So I sat down last night and put this together. And this is a warning to all you pastors out there, Pastor Vince, Pastor Aaron, Pastor Bree. You are children's pastors, plural. Keep a message on hand. You don't know when you're going to get quickened. He did say, and I quote, "Some may get quickened when they walk in the door." I would keep a message on hand. But I have a question for you. Can the quicken? So can I pick out 3 or 4 of you to help? Look at Bree.
Nope.
No, really. We come here, you know, I made a comment that you learn something, you take it out here. But isn't that what we're supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to come here to learn and share? I mean, Pastor Deb made a comment, and I wrote this down. And I think I'm actually going to have this made into a plaque to put in my study. Remember she made the comment when she reads the word, the 5 things that she prays for understanding, to correlate it, to memorize it, to share it, to live it. Really, aren't we supposed to all do that? Aren't we supposed to sow, water, and reap? And today, I got to tell you, we went to Foundations. Hank did a great job. Came in here, started just reading out the first chapter of Revelation, and it just exploded into a 45-minute discussion. Pastor Vince got on part of my message, and I'm sitting there just going, "Shut up, would you?" And then Dina gets up here, and I'm going to pray and go home. She preached my message. She really pretty much did. She summed up all of that into just that.
Tag team.
Yeah, we're there we go. But you know what? The world out there has an attitude right now. And there's many of them out there that are very truculent, especially against Christians. They are very antagonistic. They're quick to argue. They love to fight. They're defiant towards anything you do within the church. Wait a minute, quick to argue? Kind of sounds like Pastor Rob, doesn't it? All right, he's not here, I can't pick on him. When it comes to anything to do with God and the church, they're resentful. They don't want anything, they not only don't want anything to do with God or the church, they want to shut us down. And that's just kind of the attitude, and the world's captured the attitude really in 2 verses. And you don't have to put them up there, Vince, but in Matthew 5:38, remember that verse? You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Isn't it kind of the attitude of the world? You know? You say something or you do something, boy, they want blood. They're after you. They're hung up on that one verse. The other verse that they're hung up on, and sadly a lot of the church is too, is in verse 43 where it says, you have heard that it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. They're hung up on the last half of that. Hate your enemy. But how many do we know in the church that has that same mentality? That's a sad thing. We understand the commandment to love the neighbor. We understand that that's a law, but we kind of overlook the next verse. We get hung up on that hate your enemy. I got a lesson. I got schooled in that a long time ago. And you've heard me say this before. That out there doesn't scare me. This does. And fear is not what I'm walking in. That's not what I'm getting at. This is just a word of caution. I have been attacked and hurt much, much more by people in the church than the world ever has. And that's sad. But there is a lot of competition within the church body. There's a lot of hate your enemies in the church body. So if you say something they don't agree with, man, they'll come after you. I grew up with this all my life. If you're behind this pulpit, get ready for it. Because it's going to happen. I've seen it happen to my dad. But that's just part of being who you are. I mean, God calls you to do this. You can't worry about what somebody's going to think about you. But where I got educated at was in a situation where I walked out of a discussion one day. And the door closed behind the building as I walked out. And the minute I did, just clear as could be, and we talked about foundations. I've never heard the booming, audible voice of God. But I can hear him just as clearly as though he's standing right beside me. And when I walked out that door, he says, keep your mouth shut. I'll deal with it. And I did. I kept my mouth shut. I never said a word. My wife and I came under attack. 4 years later, we had people coming up to us that we did not even know. And said, we heard something. And the minute we heard it, we knew it was a lie, that there was no way that was true. God taught me, what's he say? Vengeance is his. It's not mine. It's not my place to retaliate. It's not my place to hate my enemy. He told me to shut up, you take care of it. He did. Now, that incident, by the way, not only were we totally vindicated, but the breach in the friendship has been repaired. And not by anything I did. But the breach was repaired because I was obedient. I kept my mouth shut. And I'm not bragging on me. I'm just telling you, your attitude, and that's where I'm headed with this, is your attitude is going to play a lot in your life. The retaliation, the original law comes out of Leviticus, and it was a fair law. It kept people from forcing the offenders to pay a greater price than the offense deserved. It also prevented people from taking personal revenge. Well, that ain't no fun. You read that verse where it says, the man hit you, I'm paraphrasing, the man hit you, turn the other cheek. Every ounce of me goes, no, he hits me, I'm going to hit him back. But you can't do it. I can't retaliate. The world's totally oblivious because they're hung up on that hate your enemy. They don't take the time to read the next verse where he says, but I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those that curse you, do good those that hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you. I don't want to. I don't want to. But I found out to get rid of that attitude. Because really, that's not my choice. It is a choice. That's the thing though. It is a choice we have We can retaliate. Yeah, we can retaliate. We can retaliate, or we can be willing to suffer loss ourselves rather than to cause somebody else to suffer. The person that retaliates only makes himself and the offender feel worse. And the result is a settled war and not peace. I never thought about that before. There's a difference between a settled war and peace. In the circumstance I was talking about earlier, we could have all just parted, went different ways, all of us kept our mouth shut, and we would have had a settled war. But we didn't have the peace until we let God work in our lives and in their lives in the reconciliation. Now we have the peace. It's not a settled war anymore. We have the peace. There's people that leave the church because they get their little feelings hurt, and they cop an attitude, and they leave the church. And they end up in a place where they have a settled war, but they don't have peace. It eats at them a lot of times because they know they were wrong, and they don't know how to deal with it. And boy, I just got about as far away from my notes as I can. Back to turning the other cheek. In order to turn the other cheek, we have to stay where we are, both in faith and love, and not run away. And sometimes that means we may get hit again. We may get hurt again. But our goal is to deal with the loss, to deal with the sinner, even if that means getting hit again. Sometimes we have to suffer a little bit. Sometimes we have to maintain the right attitude. Aaron, Pastor Bree never gets an attitude, does she? Psychologists tell us that violence is born of weakness, not strength. It's a strong man who can love and suffer hurt. It's a weak man that can hurt others and then run and hide. Boy, there's a whole political party in that area right now. But there's no place in the Word, no place in the law where it teaches us that we are to hate our enemies. And since Christian love is an act of will and not simply emotion, He had the right to command us to love our enemies. After all, He loved us when we were enemies. And aren't we supposed to do like He does? Aaron, I'm glad you're out here. You're going to have a short message today. One of the ways we show love and blessings for those who curse us is to do good to them and to pray for them. Now, let's be honest. Don't raise your hands. How many times have you had to really fight and argue because you had to pray for somebody you really didn't want to pray for? If you raised your hands, I bet you every hand in here would go up. There's times I've had to, and I don't say this with pride, there's times I've had to pray for my wife, and I didn't want to. And you know why I didn't want to? Because I was wrong. Yes, you got it on video.
Making sure.
Yeah, you got it on video. No, there's times we got into arguments, and I've said something that I shouldn't have said when I was mad or whatever. And she said something she probably shouldn't have said. And I had to pray for her. And I didn't want to, because in order to do it, I had to pray for myself because I knew I started it and I messed up. It don't happen very often, so don't get excited. I only say that because we're at the point where we rarely ever argue anymore. I didn't say that because I'm better than she is, believe me. But you know what? Here's the thing. When you pray for your enemies, you're going to find, that it's easier to love them because you cannot pray for your enemy without taking the poison out of it first. And I'm sure over your course of life, you've had people you've had to pray for that you had to stop, pray for yourself first. There are those out there that we call unlovable, and yet we have to love them. Well, how are we going to love them? We've got to get the poison out of ours first. So what's the Bible say about attitude? When Paul was in prison, he wrote about an attitude that a Christian should have. Let's put up Philippians, let me see if I wrote it down. I hope I did. Yeah, Philippians 1:27. Now, Paul's sitting in prison. He's got every reason to have an attitude here. I mean, and you got to understand something. When you go back and study history and you find out what a prison was back in those days, most of the prisons were underneath a building. And they were nothing more really than chains driven into the wall to hold you. Most of them were about this high, so you walk around like this when you could walk around. You usually were sitting and you were chained to a wall, no bathroom facilities. Paul had every reason to have an attitude. But what's he say? Only let your conduct be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or I'm absent, I may hear of your affairs, that you stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. Notice what he's saying there. The whatever happens is a reference to him being in prison. And what he was saying is, I'm standing my ground. I'm not going to get an attitude because I'm in prison. My attitude is going to be on the things of God, and I'm going to be thankful that even if I don't get to come and see you, I'm going to get the good report that you're standing in faith. That's the attitude we need to have. Doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter the circumstances. We can't let that dictate our attitude. No matter what unexpected disruption, frustration, and difficulties come our way, we respond with a Christ-like attitude, standing firm in the Word and in faith. Paul went on to write Philippians 2:5, your attitude should be the same as that of Jesus. And in Ephesians 5:1, it encourages us to be imitators of Jesus. What's an imitator? Bree, does your kids imitate you?
Not always in a good way.
I didn't say that. Actually, I wasn't even thinking that. But you know what? You're right. But you're right. My kids imitated me. My kids are grown and got grown kids. And to this day, I still see them imitating me. And you're right. Not everything they imitate me in is good.
That challenges us.
Both of my kids are like their dad. And I think it has to do with that Sioux Indian blood. Both my kids are like their dad, especially when it comes to their mama. If you want to see somebody get mad, say something about my daughter's mama. Whoa. She comes unglued on you real quick. But Jesus maintained a perfect attitude in every situation. He prayed about everything and he worried about nothing. We too should seek God's guidance about every aspect of our life, looking for His perfect will. I love what Dina did this morning. It was amazing how she got up here and made that one fake laugh. But did you catch something? She made one fake laugh. From that second until the end, there was nothing fake about any of the laughs. We were all laughing. When I thought I was going to quit laughing, I turned and looked at Bree. Bree's over here got her head. She's about to bust, and it got me going again. But what was it? What was it Dina saying? Attitude. When things are coming at you, you can't handle, laugh. Sometimes that's all you can do. And if you have a problem with that, just remember Bree sitting up here trying not to bust up. It worked. Jesus was never defensive or discouraged. In trials, he was patient. In suffering, he was hopeful. In blessings, he was humble. In the middle of ridicule, abuse, and hostility, he made no threats and he did not retaliate. How many of us can say that? I'm going to tell myself here. You talk about attitude. My wife gets a little upset when I tell myself. I am a very blessed and lucky man that I'm not dead. Seriously. I mean, look at me. I'm 5'10". And 30 years ago, I was a little bit less in weight even now. I had an attitude. It was cocky. It was arrogant. It was in your face. I don't care how big you are. I'm in your face. I'm not backing down. We walked through Landmark, they got double doors. This door's wide open, this door's blocked by a guy. They probably could have broke me in half. But I had a look on my face and I just kept walking, and I got about from me to Gail, and he moved over. I'm lucky I didn't get killed years ago. But that attitude stemmed from things in my childhood. Yeah, I'll tell you more about it in a minute. Paul writes about the attitude. We should have the same attitude as Christ. We should be reflecting Christ in everything we do. Attitude is a critical component of our lives. It dictates, it controls our lives. It influences how we see ourselves and how we see others. Relationships is affected by attitude. Your relationship can be great. The wrong attitude can start destroying it. It dictates our morals, our values, and how we interact with the surrounding world. The old cliche, good things happen to good people, that's true. But great things happen to good people with godly attitudes. And there's the key to the attitudes. Negative attitudes, we know, manifest negative results. We can define the quality of our life by changing our attitude. If we have a godly attitude, I told my kids always growing up, and I still believe this, attitudes are not accidents, they're a choice. You can choose your attitude. You can choose how you deal with it. Your attitudes towards your friends. Hey, friends are an important part of life. They listen to us, they support us, they encourage us. Well, at least that's what they're supposed to do. But the quality of the people in our life is often a direct result of our attitude. Our attitude attracts certain types of people. Godly attitudes attract godly friends. Likewise, you got a bad attitude, you got a negative attitude, guess who's going to start hanging around you? You know, my kids, especially my daughter, when she went into high school in Pekin, and this came from the teachers, the other kids very quickly picked up on the attitude. And you could watch it. Within a day or so, the kids that were all troubled and stuff, they knew which kids had bad attitudes, and they circled them like wagons. And they pulled them into their group. The kids that were strong, had good attitudes, would stand their grounds, they were pulled towards another group. That world does the same thing. Where we work at. Pastor Aaron, I hear him talking about his attitude where he works, being a Christian man around non-Christian. His attitude is going to affect those people around him. Those people around him, he stands his ground, are going to respect him. And there's things that they might say or do that when they're around him, they're not going to. I've lived that part. I've had friends that knew who I was. I had a friend of mine, I'm in his house. And he said something, and turned around and looked at me and apologized because he said it. He goes, I know you don't talk that way. I said, you're going to apologize to me. It's your house. I said, just because I don't talk that way, I'm not trying to tell you. But you know what? That same guy today, he was watching our lives for about 3 years. That same guy today has been very devout Christian and in his church now for 7, 8 years at least. But his attitude changed when he was around me because he respected my attitude. Back to what I was talking about, the arrogant attitude. That came because of things that happened in my life. I had a very low self-esteem. And I found it hard to connect with people and establish good friendships because I didn't trust people. I didn't respect people. I had resentment, and it caused some of those attitudes. Those attitudes, and I don't say this with pride, and I'm trying to say it very delicately and clean. Oh, don't look at me, please. Relationships with young ladies never made it past 6 weeks. Not because they did anything wrong, but because of my attitude and my resentment and my inability to trust people from things that had happened to me. Within about 6 weeks, the minute there was any inkling of any type of commitment, I was gone. I was gone with the wind. Because I never felt I could trust anybody. I never felt that I was worthy of anybody. I lived a life, and a lot of you know, I was adopted. And I think this attitude is kind of there in a lot of people that are adopted because they feel that rejection they don't understand. And in my case, 50% of my adoptions because my biological mother passed away. But that resentment in there and that lack of trust, because everybody that got close to me or I got close to either ran off or they died, and I didn't trust anybody, and it caused some real problems. So then I meet my wife. Oh, this is funny. I think God set me up there. I really do. I'm serious. 6 weeks, I'm gone. That's it. Just, you know. Now, I came from a background, my parents that raised me, this is an Assembly of God pastor. I was brought up, one of 8 kids, to believe that marriage, divorce is not an option. I grew up in southern Missouri and Arkansas on the Bible Belt, man. Divorce is a big no-no. Well, it was back then. So, when I got married, I knew it was going to be for a lifetime. There wasn't going to be I wasn't going to break that cycle. My wife came from a background where there was a large family, and she personally didn't believe in divorce, so she didn't, she wasn't going to break that either. So this is where I think God set me up. I met my wife on June the 9th. I told my brother that night I was going to marry her, and 3 weeks later, on July the 4th, we were married. God set me up. I think 43 years later, he still sits out there, looks down and chuckles once in a while, going, I got you, boy. Now, my wife, I did not know this for several years. My wife, when she was 10 years old, God showed her a vision that she was going to be married to a minister. And she will tell you, she didn't know it was going to start out being the devil and take 20 years to get him around there, but But 43 years later, 2 kids, 7 grandkids, and now a great-grandbaby, you see the results of the story. But because of that, my attitude began to change. Because of her, there were cracks in my defensive wall that I had built that began to open up. And it allowed me to start trusting people. And eventually, and it took a lot of years, it did not happen overnight, but eventually it got me to a point to where I now have friends. I now have a church body that I love, I appreciate. I feel like I can tell you anything. I'm not going to, but I feel like there's something that should kill me. But understand, my attitude went from here to here. It changed my life. It changed the relationship with my friends. It changed the relationship with my wife. Because believe me, the first 5 years, we come real close to divorce. I mean, real close. You think God set me up again. We're talking divorce. And she gets pregnant with my daughter. I said, ain't a court and land going to give me a divorce now. But during that 9 months, God began to work on me. And really the biggest problem we had is the first 5 years we was married, if I wasn't playing, during the summer, if I wasn't out racing stock cars, I was playing music in the bars. And I think my commitment was not to her, it was not to my family. My attitude had to change. God had to change my attitude. But I had to open up and accept it and let him do it. So I really, when I say I think God set me up with her, I really do believe he set me up. He knew that was one of the ways he was going to get me. Here's a biggie. Attitude for work. Wow, we are going to get out of here early today. I didn't plan it that way, but I got, like I said, I had a message and I changed it. But attitude for work. You know, most people you meet today are not happy where they're working. That's sad. When I went to work years ago, I had a job I did not like. I'm serious. It was boring. people I worked with were just anything but intelligent. In fact, there was somebody I had to fight not to slap them around a little bit. They were incompetent, negligent. And worse than that, my skills were massively being ignored. I could talk. They weren't listening. I thought that was a great skill. Yeah, laughing. But I've been blessed with being able to talk. And I'm going to say something here, and I don't mean this to be put down on anybody else. I grew up down in Missouri and Arkansas. People, hillbillies can talk. That's just, you married one. Hillbillies can talk. You know what I mean. That is really a blessing, because my wife will tell you, we can go out somewhere and I can get in a conversation with, Pastor Bob says, never met a stranger. He's right. I can get in a conversation with anybody out there. And even though I don't plan it that way, within a couple of minutes, that conversation will turn towards God. Maybe that's why I went in, he called me into the evangelistic realm, because I can go out and talk to people that a lot of you don't feel comfortable doing. But that's okay, that's not your calling. Bree and Aaron, our children's pastors, have been called and given an anointing at this point in their life to work with children. I love kids. I can't do that. My kids are grown, my grandkids are grown, little kids, I love them for about 5 minutes. And then I'm drained just trying to keep up with them. I gotta go. That's their calling for now. That's a blessing. But anyway, my skills were being massively ignored, so, I kind of had an attitude about my job. I had a boss I did not like. In fact, I kind of hated him. He was such a good boss that one of the guys took a shot at him one day. He loved to, he's an ex-Golden Glove boxer, kind of a health nut. And he loved to stick his chest out and come around, make his rounds to all of his employees and try to intimidate them. I mean, that was his thrill. And I would not allow it to happen. Remember that arrogant attitude? I was into the martial arts and stuff at the time. He'd come around and start to get on me about something. And I just look up at him and say, you know what, you want to go out in the parking lot, do about 3 rounds? But it would get him to laughing. And he'd walk away and leave me alone. And somebody asked me one day, said, doesn't he intimidate you? I said, yes, he intimidates me. I don't let him see it. That was my attitude. I'm not going to let him see it. Sometimes we may run into things, we may come under attack from the devil. And he may be intimidating him, but we don't got to let him see it. We can keep an attitude that, hey, you know what, I'm standing on the Word, I'm standing on faith. I don't care what it feels like right now. I know the outcome. You're wasting my time. It helped when my wife, he was Swedish. And one day he met my wife and found out that she was Swedish. That helped. Because after that I could call him a dumb Swede and get by with it. But it would bring that laughter. But then a funny thing happened. I accepted the fact that it may not be the greatest job and I may not have the greatest boss, but it was a good job. It took care of my family. It gave me good benefits, had a decent salary, and I began to realize that it did offer opportunities. So when my attitude changed, I started preparing myself, and a long story short, I still had that job 40 years later. And I had gone from carrying mail to 25 years in management, literally all over the district of Central Illinois. I ended up, I was postmaster in Canton. And on July 2nd, 6 years ago, I stood up and said...
January
2nd, I'm sorry, yeah. January 2nd, 6 years ago, I stood up and said enough. I look back on it and I'm thankful to God let me change my attitude, because it really turned out to be a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. I made a lot of friends. I got to witness to a lot of people. And it gave me a pretty decent retirement. But my attitude had to change first. My attitude had to change towards my bosses too. Let me tell you something. If you got a boss that you can't stand, change your attitude towards him or her, whatever the case may be. I'm going to challenge you at the end of this, something I want you to do. And I'm telling you all this to get to that challenge. My son is a very talented drummer. And that kid does things with drums that I only dream of. He far surpassed me playing drums. And even though he's very talented, he went through some rough years. He had a little problem. Somewhere along the line, he was under the misguided illusion that when things didn't go his way, he'd get cop an attitude. And that did not serve him well. Even though I taught him all of his life, attitude is a choice, it did not serve him well. Thankfully, that young man learned that attitude is one of the things that a praise and worship leader looks at when they want you on the praise and worship band. And his attitude changed. He started putting God first in his life. His attitude changed. He switched churches. He now plays drums for Bridgeway. He also fills in for Grace Methodist and a couple other churches when they're short. He fills in with different Christian musicians doing concerts. We just did one here last year in Morton in the park over there. His attitude went from poor me, pow me, to people coming up to me and saying, your son has been such an inspiration to us. He put on a godly attitude. You getting anything out of this?
Yes.
The right attitude can drive a mediocre player to great success, but a very talented player can become lonely if a poor mental attitude exists. Like my son, when we seek God first, our attitudes can change and he can open up doors. When we have a godly attitude, we offer hope. Have you ever been around somebody that you just, boy, their attitude, you just, I know some of you heard this story, you're going to hear it again. When I first went into management, I had to go through a management academy, and I was up in Chicago, and there was 27 of us. There was 2 ladies there. One named Jane from Topeka, Kansas. My wife got a chance to meet her. You could not be around this woman for 5 minutes and be in a bad attitude. You could walk up to her and tell her house just burnt down, and she would find something good in that. You know, thank God my wife, my husband and kids weren't home. She would find something good in it. But the same token, there was a young lady there from Detroit. I can't remember her name. I don't want to remember her name. 5 minutes around her, and you didn't know whether to kill yourself or kill her. I'm serious. Her attitude was that poisonous. It's just like, oh, Lord, have mercy. But if we have an attitude like that, how are we going to offer hope to anybody we encounter? I can't shine, I can't display any hope, any light, if it's all clouded by negative attitude. And there's days, even now, there's days when I have negative attitude. I had a real negative attitude Thursday night about 6:45. When my wife and I got home and was getting ready to fix dinner and looked up and realized it was Thursday. I'm telling you, when you're retired, you lose track of time. I got to stop and look and think, what day is this? Yeah, 15 minutes before Mountain Movers. Yeah, it is like, yeah, I guess we're not going tonight, are we? But when you run into these people like that, don't focus on all the negatives of their attitude. You want to give them hope. You got to focus on some good things and qualities in them. You got to shine. You got to break the rules and show them how impossible can become impossible. Your attitude can be the only hope that those people see that day. How many times you ran into somebody, got in a conversation with them, and when you got ready to leave, they looked up and said, you know what, I am so glad I got to talk to you today. You really helped. I needed to hear this. You can't do that if you got a negative attitude. You have to maintain that godly attitude. Another thing too is, words have the power to destroy and heal. They have a powerful impact on both ours and people's lives. your words, your attitude boost your own self-confidence. Remember David? Saul's trying to kill him, but he had an attitude, God ordained him, I ain't touching him. God anointed him, I'm not touching him. That's an attitude. That's an attitude we need to learn to have in the world right now. Because there is so much bickering going on. You see it on Facebook, everywhere else. Somebody, pick any ministry you want, Dr. Billy Graham. All these comments, great comments, the legacy that man left. And yet there was that handful of supposed born-again believers. Well, I hope to God that false prophet born again before he died. And I'm sitting there thinking, this man touched millions of lives. Who have you touched? Now, that's the wrong attitude. But that's what I wanted to say. In the natural, that's what I wanted to say. Who do you think you are? And that's something we got to really guard against, because that's giving the world fuel against us. People criticize Joel Osteen. I heard Joel Osteen the last couple of times, and I don't watch him. I don't care for Joel Osteen. But there's a funny thing going on right now. And my wife, Pastor Bob, even made this comment. The last couple of times I turned on the TV and he was on, there's been a change in Joel Osteen. There has been a change. You want to say something, baby?
Yeah, I heard from a lady at church's at work, that there was a prophecy that the mantle that was on Billy Graham will fall on Joel.
Well, I'll tell you what, the last 2 or 3 times I've heard him, there has been a change. He's not just being a motivational speaker now. He's actually teaching the Word. Now, he's not quoting the Bible. He's paraphrasing it in his own language, but really, isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Well, if the mantle falls on him, he will change.
Wasn't it you that told me that you're here because of Joel Osteen? Wasn't it you? Didn't you see he was watching Joel Osteen when it got you interested? Wasn't it you?
Yeah, a lot of it.
But they will criticize Joel Osteen because he's made millions. So what? He didn't take it from his church. He hasn't taken a salary since 2005. The man has sold 60-something books. I think he's made a few million of his own. But they're so focused on that and creating such division because of their attitude.
Yeah.
We're reading Philippians this month. Go read Philippians 1:15, I think, through about 19. Where he says, yeah, there's people that has come into the body that are teaching for different reasons, less than honorable reasons. But I rejoice because Jesus is still being preached. Just because we make different in our theology doesn't make that person a false prophet. So that's an attitude we really got to guard against, because it's real simple for it to come in to us. David, remember when he was out and he came back and the Amalekites had burnt the town, burnt the city, took all the animals, took all the women and the children? David had every reason to cop an attitude. So what did he do? He strengthened himself in the Lord. Sometimes when we start getting an attitude, that's what we need to do. We need to just strengthen ourselves in the Lord. We need to get in the Word, build ourselves up. We need to start looking for opportunities instead of obstacles. And when it comes to other people, we need to start looking for the good instead of the bad. It's so easy to look for the bad. My wife looks at me, and I love her. I married a very, very beautiful, funny, intelligent girl. And I paid the price for it ever since. Because if anybody can see through me, she can. And she has a way of saying things to me that I can't get mad at her. And I know she's right. But do you know why that is? Because she's always had an attitude from the day I married her that she's looking at the good. She doesn't dwell on the bad things. I know they're few and far between, but when I do mess up, she don't dwell on that. That's going to be the mark. But you know, when we start maintaining a godly attitude, there's some things that start happening. One thing is, we maintain a godly attitude. We interact with people every day. Even if you're home, you interact with your kids all day. And you've already said your kids imitate you. When we Maintain a godly attitude. Lori over here, I'm not picking on her. I'm gonna pat her on the back. Because we know what has happened, what she's going through with her house. But she's not sitting here, oh, poor me. She's moving on. She's keeping her focus where it should be. And that's exactly what we need to do. Because guess what? If I've noticed that, there's people she works with and stuff has also noticed that. That's a witness. That's a godly attitude. That's the attitude that if you take it to work, you take it to your kids, you take it to your family, you take it to your friends, you can effectively change the atmosphere and transform their lives as well. Gail's doing this women's, by the way, they're having a caterer. Why do I got to be there to serve? Just asking. But she's doing this this women's luncheon. And I love the fact that she very clearly said, it's open up to every woman, not just the ones in church. And that's great, because now she has an opportunity. You ladies that are going to be there have an opportunity to fellowship with those that may not be believers, and you can transform their life. It's maintaining that godly attitude. You can impact their lives. A lot of times we impact it and not even know it. Let me propose this thought to you. Do you know it's impossible to help someone else without helping yourself? Really, think about that for a minute. I mean, I don't care if you walk into a parking lot and you see some elderly lady trying to put groceries in the car and you go help her. You walk away feeling good about yourself. You cannot help somebody out of genuine concern and godly love. You cannot help someone without helping yourself. That's a good attitude to have. People are looking for inspiration. They're looking for somebody they can learn from. And they're watching this. The church, the world has a really negative attitude right now about us. We need to change that. The only way we're going to do it is when they start seeing a godly attitude in us. Now I'm going to go back to the thing where if guys slaps you, turn your head, face 7 times. Thank God he didn't say I had to be happy about it, he just said I had to do it. And even though I may not be happy about it, God's had me go help somebody I really didn't want to. And I was not happy about it, but that person never knew it. Because I refused to let them see that, because I felt like I was being forced by God to do it. I didn't want to do it. I felt I was being pushed to do it. I did not want them to see that. And a crazy thing happened. A couple of minutes into helping them, and we were laughing and joking, and I had a good time and forgot all about the fact that I didn't want to do it. I mean, that's just the way he works. I was obedient, and I stomped all the way over. I don't want to do it. But when I got there and I started doing it, God says, okay, now, have fun. It's that godly attitude. So I'm going to close with this. I want to challenge you. I get to do this. Pastor Bob's challenge you, Pastor Dad's challenge you, Pastor Rob challenge you, even Pastor Joe's turn. I want to challenge you something for the next 21 days. I want to see, and you don't got to tell anybody this, I want to see over the next 21 days, can we take attitude to gratitude? So you need to choose, here's the challenge, choose 2 people. You keep this thought in mind when you're choosing them. The ones that irritate us the most are the ones we can learn the most from. Because it will reveal things in us that we need to change. So when you choose your 2 people, keep that thought in mind. You might want to choose, hopefully you're not choosing your spouse because of that. And you don't have to stop at 2. I mean, you can choose more as you want, as many as you want, but you got to choose 2. You can choose your boss. You can choose a friend, a relatives, a sibling, whatever. Choose 2 people. And every day for 21 days, find 3 things in that person to be thankful for. And I got a feeling that at the end of 21 days, you're going to like that person a whole lot more. Now here's the twist. You can choose 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 100 people, no matter. You've got to find 3 things every day for 21 days that you're thankful for in that person. And here's the twist. One of the 2 people has to be you. That suddenly got a little tougher, didn't it? Because nobody is critical of us than us. And you know what? God don't like that. Remember, I started out my life thinking that I didn't deserve to have anybody in my life. I didn't think I had a relationship. One of the things that irritates me is when I hear born-again believers look up and say, "Oh, I'm so unworthy." Really? I used to feel that way. I don't feel that way anymore. That little voice in me looked up one day and said, "Really? You don't think I thought you was worthy enough to give my son's life for you?" And, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe I am worthy. I don't say that arrogantly. I don't say that proudly. I understand. He thought I was worthy enough. So why do we look in the mirror and become so critical of ourselves? Why do we have a negative attitude about ourselves? Now, I'm not saying looking in the mirror. I mean, I had to look in the mirror one day and got critical and said, got honest too, "You need to lose 50 pounds, boy." So I did. Now I'll lose a few more. I'm not talking about that type of thing. I'm talking about attitudes that we have, why we think the way we do about certain things. Is there some negativity in there still yet that we need to look at? Some one of the ways to do it is look in the mirror and find 3 things you like about yourself every day. So 3 things that you're thankful for every day. And at the end of 21 days, you don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell anybody else. Just look back on it and see how much your attitude has changed. How much more godly is your attitude towards people? Bree, that means you're actually going to have to love Pastor Rob. I know that one was hard, wasn't it? But you do anyway. So, did you get anything out of this?
Yes.
Good. You're going to get out of here a little early today. Wow. You'll get to the buffet before noon.
Oh, my goodness.
I can't go to the buffet anymore. It's a waste of money. I go to a buffet and about a half a plate and I'm full. Burger bars ruined it for me. I barely can get the sandwich down. Forget the fries and stuff, Hank, so you're on yellow.
Hank will help.
Yeah. All right, guys. Love you. See you next Sunday. Pastor